Okay, so now we've given it enough time to cure. So the next thing that we're going to do is take the molds right out of the box here. This is using the no hassle container for it. Let's say if you were to use the Lego base for it, you'd just be pulling all the Lego pieces off and then you'd have your mold. In this case here, I'm going to be applying even pressure on both sides. So just a little bit from one side and then a little bit from the other. And then notice that I'm just turning it back and forth a little bit. And you can hear that there's a little bit of give at this point. There we go. You start to hear that it's starting to separate here, so that means that it looks like it was a good cure on this one, so everything is looking good. And then now the whole thing is off. There's only tiny little bits in here, so you can take one of your trusty toothpicks or something else that you have around to pick out the last little bits in there for it if you wanted to. I'm going to pull out one part by doing the same thing by applying even pressure, and then it slides right out, and then look nice and clean in there, and then on the other side as well. Now for these, I like to grip down at the bottom because all those screws are delicate. You don't want to break those. So I'm just going to slide it out gently by pinching on the sides, and that part's out too. So no real flashing that you have to worry about. Maybe little bits here and there, but you can remove it nice and easily. And the next thing, you might have some flashing also down at the bottom, but this is also nice and easy to clean up for it too. So this saves a ton of time because I'm just using my fingers for that part. All right, the next thing I want to do is show you with the first one. This is the blank. I'm going to pull this part off here, and that's it. So we have the blank right there, all nice and pristine, and then we have the mold here. There's a little bit of flashing on here, but I'm going to show you how to clean that up in a moment. The other thing I'm going to show you is now on the cavity part. I like to pull up from the corners, each one of the corners, just a little bit at a time. That's what I'm rotating with those. And then peeling up just a little bit. If you pull too much, you can snap them, so you definitely don't want to do that. And it creates a little bit of a vacuum inside the cavity as well, so we want to be careful with that. So that's why you don't just rip it right out of there, because again, you don't want to break anything with this. The other thing, while I'm doing this, I wanted to mention is this one here is a cast copy of one of the originals that I had. The reason for that is because I don't want to break the originals. So this you can make as many as you want with the other one. So in case you do break them, it's no big deal. And I can show you in another video how to do that part. But with this here, notice I'm really taking my time with this because, again, I don't like breaking them. It's just a little bit more waste that you can avoid making. So if everything has worked well with this one here, we'll have a nice clean cavity. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment here. The other thing is when we made sure that we poured just under the top of the sprues, that makes sure that there's no vacuum on every single one of them either. So you can see there's little holes, and there's these little dots that will come off too, and that's fine. That's easy to clean up as well. So now I'm taking the last part and just wiggling it out, and there we go, another perfect mold. So you can see on there, using that toothpick trick, that it's nice and clean on the inside there. So there's a little bit of flashing along the sides that we'll also want to clean up. And so I'm going to do that right now. The way that I usually do it, and it's up to you, is I'll get a box of something. Like this is Cinnamon Toast Eggos. You can use Blueberry Eggos in case you don't have any of the Cinnamon Toast boxes around. That one will work too. And what I'll do is I'll just take the flashing on the edges. I'm going to try to show this in a way so it's not blocked by the camera, but it's kind of tough to do. And I'll take an X-Acto knife and kind of draw along that edge in a straight line. And then that'll be nice and clean. So I do the same thing. I'm pressing a little bit and drawing back, and then drawing a straight line across there. And then I do the same thing on the remaining two sides for it. So, or whatever sides do need it. Sometimes you don't need it. And so I'm doing the same thing there. Drawing along that line too. And I'll inspect it just to see how that looks, because I know that there's a fourth one. And that's looking pretty good already. That last one looks okay. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to do the same. This time slightly away from the camera. Or just draw those lines. So now that top part is nice. There's no flashing or anything. And then I'll do the same thing for the cavity mold. I'm going to do that and then draw all four of the sides. in a straight line. And then after that is complete. See how that looks? Looks pretty good. All right, and so now we have our mold. So we look for the key parts on there. So in this case here, it's the round corner here, the round corner there. Go together with a test fitment, and that is nice and snug in there. I'm twisting it back and forth and there's no give whatsoever. You'll notice that there's a slight gap on there, and we want that gap because then that way that'll help some of the resin come out from the sides, which I'll explain in a moment here. Checking the top of this one as well. I'm just cleaning off all those other little dots that appear, and that's looking pretty good. All right, so we have the mold right there for it. Now, for the cup before, if you remember, this is something where I wanted to show you how you can reuse these over and over again. I purposely left this stick right down in there, so then sometimes, and doesn't always work, but sometimes you can get it where you can just pull it out that way. Right, but otherwise you can just clean this up and start peeling from the top on back. And then notice now I'm starting to peel down on the inside like that. Pulling the whole thing out. And then I'm not too worried about the little bits that get stuck underneath the lip. Sometimes you can get them out and sometimes not, but that's not a big deal because they're on the inside for these cups here. And that's it. So now this is ready for another mix as well, because on the inside there you can see that it's nice and clean.